pretty weak armor. I would also say her non-gun attacks are pretty short range, so um, usually she does like caking and stuff like that. So um, there's a good chance that the opponent will be able to counter too. So Sophia is Steed. Um, she is a symbologist. She's actually one of my favorite characters. Because one of her main strengths is that she is probably the best symbologist user, or sorry, symbology user in the entire game. So, um, yeah, and that's just my opinion, but she has a lot of healing magic, mixed in with some good offensive magic. So, um, I also believe that she's the only one that can cast Restoration, which can actually bring your characters back to life. Um, that way, will cut down on the actual items and food that you have to use to bring characters back when they eventually die. So, um, she has a pretty good attack range because even though her weapons are really weak, many of her attacks will just be thrown off kind of like a bow and arrow. So um, the weaknesses with her are bad physical strength, but that's really okay because she's not going to be really involved in the fighting anyway. So um, unfortunately, she also has a pretty weak defense. Um, like Ardre, a lot of her defensive equipment is really just made for her. So Papito Rossetti is a light character. I really don't like using her because one of the main things about her is that like Ardre and Sophia, a lot of her defensive equipment um, is set up especially for her, and it's kind of overpriced and really doesn't help that much. So, but her her main strength is that she's probably her fastest character. So again, all this stuff is just in my opinion. So um, as for her weaknesses, as I said, weak kind of specialized armor. She's got a pretty short range attacks. Her main attacks are basically kicking with her shoes, which is pretty more offensive than offensive. So, um, okay, the last person that we get is Mirage Coast. Um, I classify her as a heavy fighter. Although she does share a little bit with light fighters, so um, because she's pretty fast for a heavy fighter. She can use many of the same weapons that Cliff can use. So, like Maria, she can use support symbology, which is actually pretty useful if you decide to go with her. You might want to consider going with her late in the game over Cliff, depending on what you actually use them for, and actually you have to bring up her levels quite a bit. So, um, as for her weaknesses, she is really not as strong as Cliff. Even though throughout most of the game, Cliff kind of makes a big deal out of her being like super strong and stuff, but she really is not that strong. So um, she is stronger than some of her other female characters, but it's not like she's Superwoman and the other people are just like mere mortals or whatever. So um, as for the recommended groups, again, all these are just my opinion, and these are not all the ones that are going to be in the game. So, for about 2/3 of Disc 1, this is going to be your only real group, and it's actually going to be one of the better ones of Fate, Cliff, and Nell. So, um, one of the other recommended ones is excuse me, Fate, Cliff, and Sophia, which I am going to be using at the end part of the game here. Um, also, Fate, Mirage, and Sophia. As long as you can kind of keep Mirage away and actually using your gun. And the other thing is with Fate, you of course don't want to overuse his symbology. So um, also Cliff, Maria, and Nell. That's not the best group, but it's pretty good usually. Um, will give you a good amount of actually going in with Cliff for short range attacks, Maria for long range attacks, and Nell for symbology if you need some support that way. So um, same thing with Cliff, Maria, and Sophia. So um, and for those of you who like using Albel over Fate, Albel, Cliff, Nell. Um, that's actually going to be a pretty okay one to use. So, um, Albel, Cliff, Sophia, of course. Then Albel, Mirage, Sophia. Usually, I don't like to put in all three characters of one group, so I don't like including three heavy fighters or three light fighters or three symbologists. I usually like to kind of mix it up. So, as for my non-recommended groups, I know that this is not all the other ones that can be in the game, but um, uh, Fate, Alba, Maria. That way, you have to rely on items basically to do any healing or anything like that. Same thing with Fate, Abel, Pepita, Fate, Abel, Mirage, um, Cliff, Fate, Mirage, um, Fate, Cliff, Roger, so on and so forth. As I said, don't use all the heavy fighters or all the symbologists or whatever. So, but anyways, that is my opinion on some of the characters here in Star Ocean Till the End of Time, and how you should pretty much use them. And if you disagree with me, that's fine. I like to hear some other suggestions. So just take what I've said under advisement, and if you have any other questions or whatever about it, so feel free to ask me or anybody else here on the actual comments. So, I will see you later.